A potential scandal with the Buffalo PD surfaced today when the mayor demanded
What an excellent day for an exorcism.
Welcome to slavery.
No thanks. I already had a wife.
In other news, the Prime Minister of Sweden visited Washington today, and my tiny little nipples went to France.
It might be a tumor.
It's not a tumor.
Son of a bitch, Paul. Why didn't you just go home? That's your home. Are you too good for your home? Answer me!
Who is my daddy, and what does he do?
Sir, I'm gonna have to ask you to exit the donut.
Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and hear the lamentation of the women.
Ah, yes, a beautiful tropical shirt Friday, and time to once again crush our enemies in aisle 7, in case you're wondering. Hi, once again, everybody. I'm Ed Berliner. Welcome into another rousing edition of the free-for-all where anything goes. That's right. No filter, no censorship, no fooling. We'll get to all that because we got a whole lot of things to do. We had a short way to go and a long time to get there. And once again, I apologize to my guests up front because I have once again forgotten. And after all these years doing it, I don't know why. I keep forgetting to tell people in the note that it's Tropical Shirt Friday. And I always screw that up because I only do the show twice a week, Tuesdays and Fridays right now, until somebody comes in and gives me a tremendous amount of money to do it 5 days a week. Mm-hmm. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, say no more, in case you're wondering. So at least on Fridays I have to get it right. But I am resplendent in mine. I apologize to my guests, but trust me, the entire conversation will take us well past that. Let's go ahead and introduce my crew because these are all great friends of mine. And there is, as you will find out, a tune that will go through the entire show. My first guest is a Grammy Award-winning saxophonist. I got hooked onto his music a long time ago. Well, just a couple days ago. I don't want to make it sound like it's been that long, actually. But I have his CDs. I play them constantly. I am always telling people that if you want absolutely incredible, great jazz, saxophone jazz, which I am in love with and have been for years, then this is the guy that you have to go out and find him. I'd tell you to go out and buy the CDs, but see, that would just show my age. Now just go download them. It's so much easier. He has a new CD coming out with John Cicada and KC from KC and the Sunshine Band, Harry Casey, who's going to be singing on it. It is called Soulful Nights, which I'm sure we'll talk about as the day goes on. It is a real pleasure to welcome back to the show Dr. Ed Kaye joins us. Dr. Kaye, I love calling you Dr. Kaye, man. It fits so perfectly.
Yeah, I just can't prescribe any medication. But it's great to see you, Eddie. It's wonderful seeing you, and it's wonderful to be here.
Do us a favor. Don't prescribe any medication. We got enough of that going around right now. Okay? Please don't, okay? It's like I always tell people, I'm not a doctor. I just play one on TV. So we'll make that very easy. My next guest is another gentleman that I have known for a number of years. And as I told one of my other guests here a few moments ago, I met him a long time ago at a place called Musicians Exchange, which used to be on the second floor of a two-story building in a crappy neighborhood in Fort Lauderdale. But it was the place to go for jazz and blues. And I first got hooked on him with his group, the Atlantean Driftwood Band, which I also have a CD of. And I think I've been waiting for the second. I don't know if there's a second CD, but if there is, I'm going out and buying it right away. He is a veteran band leader. Everybody in South Florida knows him. Nationally, they know him. And he also was the guy that Frank Sinatra trusted to be his band leader when Blue Eyes came to South Florida. How cool is that? He is not a doctor, but in my mind he is. Peter Graves joins us on the show today. How you been, Peter?
Very good, thanks.
How did that work? Did I hit all the numbers and hit all the marks?
You did pretty good. You know,
Okay.
I'll call you guys Mr. Ed.
See, you had to do that, didn't you? You just had to figure out a way to slip that in there. Don't worry about it. We'll get you back before the show is done. And finishing out the quartet today is another wonderful veteran friend of mine who is not a musician. However, I bring him in here because this guy loves his music like I do. He is a monstrous fan of the New Orleans Jazz Fest, which we'll talk about later in the show, We talk music from time to time. I see him at the various venues. He is an attorney. He is a former sports agent. He is, quite frankly, the man that I say knows more about anything than anybody else. And damn it, you better learn it too, because this guy knows what's going on. It's always a pleasure to welcome Joe CASALE into the show today. Joey C.
Hi, Joe.
Ed, how are you?
I'm good, my friend. Good to see you. And we do, and I do have to tell you, and again, it's part and parcel of that, because we've passed notes back and forth on Facebook. It is terrible that there's no Jazz Fest for the second year in a row. I know that you're crushed by that.
Yeah, and no French Quarter Festival either. That canceled today as well.
Oh,
So,
God,
yeah.
you got it.
The one thing about French Quarter Festival is the promoters said that they're going to pay the musicians and the vendors through their sponsors and through relief funds. So at least, and that's mostly that's for local musicians, that event. It's a free event. It's usually precedes Jazz Fest, and at least they're going to get paid. But it's pretty devastating when you lose these events 2 years in a row and try to keep it together. And, as we know, there are no guarantees about 2022 at this point either. So
we're going to go ahead and we'll dig a little bit deeper into that a little bit later on. Thank you, sir, for joining us. All right, so there you go. As you can see, there is a musical thread that goes through today, but there is, of course, the serious stuff that we have to talk about. So having now introduced everybody, you all know what time it is.
Showtime.
Showtime. Showtime.
Showtime.
Showtime.
Showtime.
Showtime.
Showtime.
Showtime. Showtime.
Showtime.
Showtime.
Showtime.
Showtime. Showtime.
Showtime.
Showtime.
Showtime.
Showtime.
Showtime.
How many people would actually know Paul Williams in that group?
Wow.
I haven't seen him in a long time. Gentlemen, here we go. Showtime. Let's go ahead and get started. Unfortunately, we have to begin on a serious note of what we're following here today in the news. America is right now so split and so fractured and so argumentative at this point, but we are in such danger in so many different ways, because not only are jazz fests being canceled, events are being stopped, there is a tremendous amount of work being done to try and keep people safe in so many areas, and in so many other places in this country, so many people just don't seem to care, or at least they're not grasping what is really going on in America, thanks to COVID-19 and the pandemic that is not going away and is, quite frankly, getting a whole lot worse. Let's begin with what is happening in Tennessee, because in a state where infections are raging, we have now come to the point where the school boards are deciding to mandate the masks for the educators and for the students. And we've gotten to a point where the parents are now openly threatening the educators over something as simple as a mask.
We know who you are. We know who you are. You can leave freely, but we will find you, and we know who you are. We know who you are.
We will find you. Anti-mask demonstrators gathered outside that school board meeting Tuesday night in Williamson County after a vote passed in favor of requiring masks in elementary school classrooms. Parents shouted they will not comply, and some said child abusers, as a board member walked to his car. Joe.
Well, we know who you are, and we will find you. I think the police officer there and the police department there needs to find out who's making those threats on camera, and need to question them by asking them exactly what that means. It is a shame that you have parents who, despite the fact we're seeing news of children dying from the Delta variant, despite the fact we're seeing news that this Delta variant is spreading, that I think it spreads like 10 times easier than COVID did last year. We still see these scenes because there are a lot of people that just get bad information from Facebook and other social media and other talk show hosts. It's unfortunate, but tip of the hat to the school board members who acted like adults. And by the way, we've always had people that have followed disinformation, and we've always needed leaders that looked past some of those people, even those shouting threats, like you saw right there, and moved forward and did the right thing. That's what we need. Adults. We need adults leading this country. And I'm glad the school board did what they thought was best to protect children.
On top of all this, with parents now threatening educators with "we know where you live," which is scary, that brings us then to what's happening in South Florida. Because as we look at this, we now have news that not one, but 4 teachers are dead in South Florida, educators. 3 of them are full-time teachers. One is a substitute. But just the fact to hear that on top of what we've seen is chilling.
I hear this every day, whether it's somebody in Broward County or somebody throughout the state of Florida, and being the union president, we're the 5th largest union teachers union in the country.
Now to a CBS 4 News exclusive. Broward Teachers Union President Anna Fusco says multiple teachers are dead after contracting COVID and dying within a 24-hour span. CBS 4's Jessica Vallejo is live for us with more tonight. Jessica?
That's right, Laura. Now, we just learned from her that 3 of those teachers were unvaccinated. The 4th one still unknown if he or she had a vaccine. In less than 1 day this week, between Tuesday and Wednesday, COVID-19 has claimed the lives of 3 Broward County school teachers and 1 of its assistant teachers.
In a 24-hour span, we had an ESP pass away, a teacher at her school also pass away, another teacher at another elementary school pass away, and another teacher at a high school.
When it comes to picking its victims, the virus does not discriminate. Broward Teachers Union president says she hears about such tragedy way too often.
It's extremely frightening. I mean, I hear this every day, whether it's somebody in Broward County or somebody throughout the state of Florida.
Dr. Rosalind Osgood, the chair of the Broward County School Board, says they mourn the loss of 4 of their own.
I've been on the school board for 9 years, and for 9 years you interact with people, you get to know them, you get to love them. So a lot of them are like my family.
The teachers, ironically, all dying around the same time Broward County School Board voted to defy Governor DeSantis' order to drop the mask mandate. The board choosing its own move when it comes to masks.
I am still in dismay about the last couple of weeks of action, our state government being our governor and our commissioner of education. So I was very shocked that we got such a backlash and have subsequently received so many threats about our decision to mandate masks.
Despite the dangers, the governor is sticking to his guns.
Once again, we hear the word threats. Gentlemen, I'm going to try and keep this away from politics because, quite frankly, I think we need to separate it at this point because we have people who are trying their best to at least see if they can do something right, try and save some lives, and instead they're being threatened. And I know that politics has to walk its way into this at one time or another, but when I heard that there were 4 dead teachers and 3 of them were unvaccinated, that was a slap to the face, and it should be a slap to the face for so many other people. Eddie Kaye, I'm going to bring you in first on this one because you're an educator. You're in the classroom at Miami-Dade College. And you spend time with young people who are trying to move ahead in their futures and doing the best you can. Does this frighten you? And where do we go from here just to at least try and strike a balance of common sense in this country?
I don't think it's about fear. I think it's just about having respect for the other people. I'm, as you know, I'm politically very much on the right, but I'm about people. And if I wear a mask whenever I'm out somewhere, I don't go out very much. We have been away from the campus now for over a year, and I will be away from the campus again this fall. And I applaud the school for doing that, especially a college like Miami-Dade College, where we have so many people from all walks of lives at all ages that are coming to a commuter campus. We can't protect everybody that way, and the safest way to everybody stay well is to have everybody at distance and to wear the mask. And I do it out of respect to the other people. If I go somewhere like a Publix or something else, first of all, I look better with a mask on, but more importantly, I do it out of respect for the other people. And I'm an older guy, and I have I have a ruptured diaphragm from all the years of playing too loud. So I'm very nervous about air and those kinds of things. But more than anything else, the last thing I want to do is walk up around people, and people who are scared, have them feel like something is wrong. So I'm with you. I think there comes a point where we have to do what's best for not only ourselves, but for everybody around us. And if that means giving them peace of mind by wearing a mask, then for God's sakes, we wear a mask. It's not that big a deal.
Joe CASALE, respect is the word that Ed brings into this. And I think that's a word that we just so many people gloss over that, because it is just a piece of cloth that has been proven to save lives. That's the end of the story. And while I've been vaccinated, and quite frankly, I'm the guy going that if you want to give me a third shot, here's the arm. You go right ahead. You want to give me a fourth one? It's okay. Whatever you want. I'm good, because I have a 90-year-old father. I have people in my family who I don't want to get sick, and I respect them to do what I need to do. Joe, are we just at a point where respect, we're never going to see it, period, end of story? And if we think that these knuckleheads are going to all of a sudden find it, we're the delusional ones.
Well, I mean, we're losing our sense of community. We're losing our sense of respect. And that's because social media is a lot of things, but one thing it ain't social. And it's being used as a weapon of propaganda. It's being used as a weapon of threats. 6 years ago, in Palm Beach County, they had one sheriff working online threats. Now they have 11. So the world is changing, and the pandemic is bringing out the best in some of us and the worst in too many of us. And it is a serious situation. I mean, there was a time that we could disagree politically, we can disagree in a lot of things, but when it comes to, for instance, protecting children, all of us were on the same page. Now we're not on that page.
Well, how do we?
And
That's a great point. How do we get off that page, though, Joe? I mean, just
well, we got off
protecting
that
children. That
page.
seems like a simple, basic fact of life. You protect your kids. I protect my
Well, we
dogs
got
better
off
than
that
some
page.
people protect their kids.
There's the benchmark moment. It was Sandy Hook. Once we didn't do anything about Sandy Hook, we no longer cared about kids getting gunned down. We no longer cared about the safety of children. And then Parkland came, and we know, and Douglas, and we didn't care about that either. Oh, we cared for a few days, and we sent thoughts and prayers, but we didn't do anything about it. And now, this is not a gunman who's got mental problems coming into a school and gunning down people. This is something that can kill any of us, even if we are taking all of our necessary precautions, because it's a virus, and we're looking for leadership, and in too many places we're not getting it. And it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican. And we're so far beyond the political side of this now. It gets down to people who are every day spreading misinformation. And it's weaponizing people to threaten school board members. I mean, how do you threaten school board members with,
how do you threaten somebody who's
we
trying to
know
protect
where
your children?
you live.
And just people
we
in
know
general.
where you live. I mean, it's just so the whole thing is out of whack, and unfortunately, there's no one out there, Ed, that's reeling us back in. I mean, there just isn't, and we're going to have to reel ourselves back in. And if we don't, then we're going to be in for another winter that was going to be worse than last year. Because here's what's not going to happen: there's not going to be any more lockdowns, because it's impossible at this point. So you're going to have a lot of people dying. I mean, we see it every day on social media. You see somebody's Facebook post, I'm never going to get vaccinated. It's all a hoax, da 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 da. And then we see him on a ventilator, and we see the son or daughter sending a post under his account. Well, you know, Dave died yesterday. And what's happened, and this is the bad part, we're becoming more callous to that. We're becoming, well, hey, I don't care. Yeah, that's his problem. Well, it really isn't. It's all of our problems.
Right.
And until we start getting a greater sense of community, the fact is we're never going to beat COVID.
Okay,
It's always going to be here. It's never going to leave our lives, and it's just going to continue to destroy the country.
Let's stop there for a sec, and let me get to the sense of community here, because there's a lot here. Peter, I'm going to come to you on this too, because you have grandkids, you have family, and you've been moving from place to place. And what Joe pointed out is there's no rolling back to this point. I hear words like sense of community, and I want to embrace that, and I want to get around that. It's impossible. There is no sense of community anymore. Nobody gives a shit. It's like if it's not me, if it's not on my plate, and if it doesn't affect me, then I don't have to do it. You got to wear a seatbelt in order to stop from dying. And I make sure that my grandkids and my parents and everybody has one in my car, but don't worry about it. If you don't want to get the vaccine, fine, you can die there. I mean, Peter, where do we go from here?
Boy, I'm just as taken aback by everybody by this. It seems to me, with the advent of so much of the social media stuff, it seems everybody seems to be so quick to take offense at everything anymore. It just didn't seem that way through the majority of my adult life, and so it's very bothersome to see all this, exaggerated conflict. It just bothers me a lot. I mean, when it comes to like the vaccination and the wearing of the mask, you go back to the smallpox and the polio. We have embraced the science, and we were able to get past that. If we had this type of thing going on then, we never would have got past smallpox, which has been eradicated.
Which is the one point that I think people want to push forward with smallpox and with polio. Guess what? Vaccines saved lives. And
Absolutely.
Now we have people railing against them because we have this knuckleheaded misinformation, propaganda, disinformation that says Bill Gates is trying to track us. The government is trying to put small business out of business. There's a part here where everybody lies to us, and all they're trying to do is poison us. And Peter, I think you can speak from a generation that people knew and they could see the deadly side of smallpox, polio, and all these other vaccines. You could see it in newsreels, but now it's right in our face. There's social
Absolutely.
media.
Yeah.
There's the camera
Yep.
that people are taking pictures of their loved ones when they're in the ICU and they're dying. So we're looking at those pictures. There was a picture the other day of a woman in Florida who gave birth. 2 days later, she died of COVID. And there's the picture of her holding her child for the only time in her life. And then they had to put her in the ICU and put her on oxygen and intubate her. She never saw her baby again. Why are those pictures not just, slapping us in the head going, there's the reason?
Yeah. And everything has to be that politically correct and everything. Even the military bothers me right now. The fact that they're even having to justify getting our service people vaccinated. I mean, trust me, when I was in the Far East and going in and out of Vietnam and Thailand and all these places, they gave us shots all the time. They said, you have to have this shot to go in that country. Flat out. There was never any justification. Just line up and get it. That's just what you had to do. So the fact that they're trying to soft pedal this, move on, just do it.
Gentlemen, I'll open this up then to the floor because we've all made good points here. We've all made salient points. And again, I want to try and keep this out of a political conversation because the politics is involved. There's no doubt. Left and right is completely split on this, and that's part of the reason. But there's got to be something else. I mean, are we at the point, and again, whoever wants to take this and go with it, run with it, where we just have to say, and I said this on a show earlier this week, I have no sympathy if you're unvaccinated and die. I don't. And one of my guests said, if you're unvaccinated and you wind up in the hospital, you're taking the beds from somebody who really needs it because you were foolish enough not to take the precaution in the first place. So it's your fault that the beds are full, and it's your fault that the people who are really sick and desperately need it are not able to get the medical treatment that they deserve. Where do we go? I mean, I'm looking for answers now from anybody.
Well, I mean, it's tough. I mean, I just think you have to look inward. I think all we can do, we can't control everybody's behavior. We can control our own. And I think that one of the things we can't do is we can't turn it into an us versus them. That's easy to do, but that's not going to work. I think all you can do is, I think Ed said it best. You do it out of respect for others. You wear a mask. You do think if it makes other people comfortable, then so be it. It's not that big of a deal. And if more people feel that way, things will move forward. I think one thing that is going to move the needle in the coming weeks and months is that the unvaccinated are going to have less access to things. They're not going to be allowed at sporting events. They're not going to be allowed in restaurants. They're not going to be allowed at concerts. I mean, it's just, that's where it's going. And it's not going for the great, it's not going there because our leaders are doing anything about it. It's doing it because corporate America is saying, I'm not going to have another year where I lose 70% of my profits. So we're just going to take over. And what's ended up happening, I mean, Live Nation, they've made it clear you can't come to a concert unless you show proof of vaccination. Yesterday in New Orleans, they announced that you can't go to a Saints game at the Superdome without proof of vaccination. Right. I suspect you're going to see that at more stadiums and arenas as the year goes on. And you're just going to get carved out of doing things. And, you know, that is really where it's headed. And what happens when that actually takes place is anybody's guess.
Go ahead,
but I
Peter.
think it's pretty clear that's where it's
yeah, I was just going to say,
I'll come to you in a
just
minute here, but I know Peter wanted to throw something in here. Go ahead, Pete.
well, just on the political side of things, I mean, and without going that far, I mean, I'm a little bit left of center and right. I mean, Ed Kai's to the right, and he and I are the dearest friends. We make great music on the stage. I think what happens is when we have any dialogue and all of that, there's never an issue. I think the bulk of this country is within the 40-yard lines on that football field.
Yes.
But this radicalism is being driven by all the crazies on the two end zones. And I think that's where the problem is. And the more that we communicate, all of us within the 40s, the better we're going to be.
Well, but wait a minute, and Eddie, I want to bring you in on this. Can we communicate in the 40s? How long have we been doing this now? And I'll be damned if I've seen anybody, well, the majority of people within the 40s. I still see them way out here from the 40 to the goal line, and I don't see people getting into the 40s, Dr. Ed. I mean, I don't see it. Am I missing something?
Yeah, you know, at the college, I get a lot of kids who are kids, and they're all ages. You know, from 2 to 92, as the song says. We get kids, and they're from every view, politically and socially and everything else, and we never have these problems. America is a lot closer together than the people who are using the division to gain ground for themselves. And I say that about the politicians who are no longer public servants but are self-service people. But as Peter said, Peter and I are, you know, Peter's like, I don't know, a father figure for me. And you're one of my great friends. And I don't want anybody to get sick. I don't want anybody to die. And if wearing a mask makes people feel better and it makes them feel safer, then that's that. I will say I have some friends who, because of their religious beliefs or their native, I have one who is a native Indian of South American descent, and he will just not take a vaccine. And I love him. And I don't want him to get sick. So I will wear a mask, and I respect his choice.
Yeah, I got a problem with that.
I don't have a problem with that.
I have to be honest. I have a problem with that. If in the military specifically, and Peter brought it up, You are a public servant. You are there to protect and to serve. And Peter is right, because every time you get in the military, you take shots. You're a pincushion. Take it and shut up. If you don't want to take the shot, and this is me speaking in my opinion, if you as a member of the military, if you as a member of the police department, the fire department, somebody who serves other people, if you don't want to take the shot, you're fired. And your pension goes right out the window. Now, let's try that on for size. And how terrible that we have to get there. I mean, for people to understand that. And see, I mean, Peter's even got that all upset about it now because I had to bring it in.
He got my laptop over.
But I'm at the point where I'm trying to tell people that if you don't want it, fine. Then you don't get to work here. You don't get to have your pension. And let's see how that goes. And religious reasons, I'll tell you what, look, there's this whole argument now that if you have a medical reason, then you can opt out. I get it. There are certain things, and I've talked to the doctors who said there are just certain reasons I would never give somebody a shot. And they're few and far between, but they have them. Religious reasons, Eddie, I'm telling you, I'm a live and let live kind of guy. I don't care. As George Carlin once said, you know, you can believe in Our Lady of Great Agony, St. Rita Moreno, and Our Lady of Perpetual Motion. And I'm okay with that. I don't care. But if you're going to be part of society, don't you have to take that religious belief and turn that into something that is more caring about everybody?
We have to be real careful with that kind of stuff. I remember 1936, 1945. I have family that went on trains because of those kinds of things. There's corporal punishment has never worked.
Correct.
The whole idea of, you know, beating a child or beating someone into submission, it never works. I think the only way that we can get this to function is to just stop listening to the static that is out from the goalposts, as Peter said, and get the 40% of Americans who agree on almost everything, and one is left and one is right. Nobody cares, and just we have to do everything we can to say to people, look, if you don't want to take the vaccine, just make sure that you're not giving it to anybody else. We want you to be safe. If you don't trust it, let's give it a little more time. I think we have to be nicer to each other than this idea that the punishment is going to work. I don't see that working at all. And what it's going to do is it's going to make people go nuts.
Okay, so can we do that
and
then?
You, Ed Bernal, as part of the media, take some of this rap. I got to tell you. You know, I'm just saying the media is giving some of these extremes far too much oxygen.
Well,
you know, they say we don't believe this, but then they go turn around and show the clip.
I got to make a delineating point here, Peter, because in my world there's a Grand Canyon-esque difference between clickbait media and legitimate press, because that's my bailiwick, and I know that. And I watch and I listen and I read the legitimate press that comes in and backs everything up with fact, and the clickbait media that throws things out here. And I heard this the other day, somebody who said, if you want me to show my vaccination card to come into a restaurant, what's next? You're going to ask me to show my papers? I was enraged at that point, because as somebody who's both Catholic and Jewish, I said, so you want to take a pandemic and you want to then start to compare it to the death of 6 million Jews? I mean, is that what you want to do? That's clickbait media versus legitimate press, Peter. That's the difference.
Yeah.
But
no, I understand. I'm just saying, giving too much oxygen to those extremes doesn't help anybody.
Agreed. Eddie, go ahead.
That's the problem. I've read more about Mike Lindell this week than I want on legitimate news outlets than I want to read about. And it's, why are we giving air to all of these people? Because the more air we give these people, the people who don't follow this every day think this is just the way it is. And it isn't.
But is it even possible, Joe, to separate them? Because, and I understand what you're saying, I really do, and I totally agree with you. But you have people who are so ingrained now in the first thing they do in the morning, they go to Twitter and they go to Facebook in order to get their news. And they are going to those elements and those platforms that are giving air to these knuckleheads and nincompoops. How do we stop that? What do we have to just wait for them to die out?
I mean, it's not an easy solution. That's the problem.
It's not. And guys, I don't see any solution to that. I mean, it's almost as if we're going to have to wait for Mother Nature to come in here and basically kill off the generation. I hate to say that, but maybe we're at the point where we're going to have to, the 20-somethings are going to have to live long enough for the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s just to die out.
Look, it's inevitable that when you have 7 billion people on a planet and you have the kind of mobility that we have now that we never had before, that we're going to introduce things into our systems that are foreign to us, and in many cases will likely create these kinds of problems. It's not going to be the first, it's not going to be the last. And the best way to do this is to open communication and to really have a sense of community. I don't want anyone to die. I don't want anyone to get sick. That's impossible to manage. But if people understand that somebody who is as far on the right as I am will say, hey, I'll wear a mask and I'll do whatever I need to do to make sure that you're protected because I respect you and your life and your choice. And as an American, you have every right to disagree with me, and I will respect that, defend it with my life if I have to. I think if we do that, we're going to be a lot closer together than what we have with all of these, crazy people out there that are fueling the fires. And the politicians are the worst ones because they're using this to polarize their camps. And too many people are followers and not leaders of those kinds of things. And I just don't see it. And here are 4 people who we're all very different. And yet we're all on the same page in terms of we love each other and we love people. And if we see that with all of Americans, we're not going to have a problem. And eventually the science will figure it out.
Will it? I mean, well, you would hope so, and I'm going to agree with you on that. Hopefully, and I'm one of the people who believes that the science is figuring it out. And I chafe every time I hear somebody go, the CDC lied to us, the NIH lied to us, Dr. Fauci lied to us. And here's, and again, I'm not a doctor, I just play one on TV, but I'm smart enough to do my research and know what goes on here. Because when it comes to medicine, that's why they call it practicing medicine. Because when the virus started and hit, we had a certain knowledge of what was going on. Then it got worse. Then it increased. Then we make changes. And early on, I love people who go back and say, well, they told us we didn't have to worry about wearing masks. Yeah, in January of 2020, when we didn't know the severity of it. Then it got worse. Then we know. So it's not a matter of, this is what I want to shut down one way or another. It's not like everybody's lying because they want to lie. There's no reason for it. It's because it's science. I feel like all of a sudden we should be going back to weird science. It's science. But I don't know how we get people to believe in the science when they don't want to believe what is in front of them and what is handed.
Well, we have two. What we do is we need 2 planets: the flat one and then the globe. And we can send all the non-believers onto the flat one with their climate denial and their non-vax, and they can be on that flat one.
I made a joke to somebody the other day who I know is a flat earther, and we were complaining about the heat. I said, just walk to the edge and then go to the side, and then look at all the shade you got. You're in the dark. You don't have to worry about a thing. But we're off on another item here altogether.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go ahead and roll this now to the mic drop segment of the show, because everybody gets a chance to throw in whatever they want at any time. Doesn't make a difference. Whatever it is, you have that absolute opportunity to do that. So seeing as I have not seen Mr. Graves in a long time, Peter, I'm going to throw this to you first and foremost here. It is your shot. It is your show. Go for it. What's on the mind?
Well, I got to go back to last night in the Field of Dreams. I just thought that was one of the greatest presentations. I mean, it was just, I loved the movie when it first came out, and everything about it. It just speaks to, the playing ball with your dad, like Kevin Costner was saying, and it reminded me of, as a young man, my mom and dad had divorced, and flying from Nantucket into Boston, my dad would pick me up at Logan and go to Fenway as a young man, and you got to understand, he was a New York Yankee fan, and for him to take me to Fenway to see my hero Ted Williams was a real act of love,
That's when Fenway was new, right? Wasn't that like it was only a year or two old?
Oh yeah, right. I still have my Ted Williams jersey.
No, but
But
I gotta tell you, with
I
the
mean,
whole thing,
it was magical what it did, and the kicker was the game. The game, the players
game
lived
was
up to it. I
magnificent.
mean, right to the end of the ninth inning. It was awesome.
I'll tell you this much: the first movie I ever cried in the theater was Field of Dreams. I remember standing at the back of the theater and waiting, and there was, "Hey, Dad, you want to have a catch?" Boom, gone. I was gone.
Yeah.
My dad and I never played catch. He never came to my Little League games because he was always working. So just that moment, and when I was watching that moment, and again, Kevin Costner, he was the method actor in him came out in that whole thing. At one moment, I kind of felt the Costner was going, "What the hell am I doing here? It's just, I gotta hit my mark here. Oh, there's my mark. I can hit that." But in a moment, I sat there watching. Lady Shannon turns to me. She goes, "What are you crying for?" I had tears pouring down my eyes.
Sure.
And it affected me. The only problem, Joe, is that the Yankees lost, and that makes you unhappy.
That was brutal.
Oh, that did my heart good. What's it? The enemy of my enemy.
It was really special. And, the baseball season is so long; every day rolls on to the next day. When you can have something like that happen from one night, that was pretty cool. And the whole everything really was just done first rate. And I thought Fox did a great job of capturing all of the sights and sounds and imagery. It was really nice.
Dr. Ed, that had to be something for you because, I mean, you're an artist, and as an artist, you play music, and it drives people to tears sometimes and to emotion and to emotional levels. That's what artists and entertainers do. I mean, that was just a moment that you'll never capture again. I think there's going to be people who'll be playing that back for generations.
Yeah, whoever wrote that script did a great job, huh?
Oh.
I have so much respect for athletes, and Peter and I are both, great sports fans, and I admire that so much. And any of us who have ever played softball or baseball or anything know how difficult that is. As a musician, you work with virtuosos and you realize what that is. And we get to watch these men and women play sports at these professional levels, and they're so good at what they do, and it's really inspiring. It brings out the best in us, that sacrifice that they make. And last night was one of those magic moments where film and reality sort of merged. I don't know why it took Major League Baseball so long to figure that one out.
Well, there's a story behind that I actually found today. The woman who owned the house, when they sold the house that the original field was in front of and constructed, she had to fight the city because of the zoning that changed.
Oh, wow.
And she continually went to Major League Baseball, and she wanted to have the game there. She fought for years, and unfortunately, she died of cancer just a couple of years ago. There's a story in one of the Iowa papers where she never got to see her
So
dream.
she never got to see it.
Never got to see it, but she was the driving force behind it. And I think baseball's always wanted to play there. But then, of course, we had COVID and then different issues. Now, it's going to become one of those things where every year you're going to see somebody, I think, show up there. And I got to tell you, it blew my mind because I didn't know how just completely distracted I am with everything these days. I didn't know they built an entirely new ballpark on the other side of the corn. I thought they took the small field and constructed around that. What they did there is iconic. I want to see every game played like that, just with 7,000 people.
And it had to be made to MLB standards with the bullpens and everything else. So they're not going to spend that kind of money and then never use it again.
Right.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's a shame. I'd like to see a lot more games like that, but I don't want to hit the tears again. I won't tell you what I am going to do this weekend. I do have I do have a copy of Field of Dreams. I'm watching it this weekend just for giggles and grins. Dr. Ed, go ahead.
It's funny. There's movies always, for me, they have very memorable things that you can use as lessons in life. And that phrase, build it and they will come, I think that's one of the most brilliant motivational phrases in history, in the sense that what you're doing here, for example, with your show, what Peter Graves has done, what Joe does all the time, is you build these infrastructures just on the belief, the Walt Disneys of the world, And that is a great lesson for life. And my other favorite one is, which of course I don't follow, is from Animal House, which is fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son. there's always something to learn from the movies.
Somebody asked me one time if I wanted to run for political office, and I said yes. And my slogan is going to be "Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life," and that would be perfect. The only thing that Field of Dreams, and there's a lot of things in Field of Dreams that didn't fit. The only thing that bothers me, and I'm one of these continuity guys, and I can see it because I'm always watching film and I'm watching how the scenes get put together. Joe Jackson, they got him completely wrong from his batting and from his fielding, because they got his hands all wrong, because they had him as a left-hander and a right-hander. They got it wrong. And
how many times have you seen the saxophone and they got the hands upside down? You know,
well, that was me.
And the other thing with the sports, and I want Ed to play 3 out of 10 notes right and get paid millions of dollars a year. You know, yeah. I know how hard it is to hit at baseball.
He plays jazz. He doesn't have to hit every note properly.
Yeah, well, that's what it's about. Ed manages to get about 3 or 4 notes right out of every 10. You know,
that's why people cry. That's why they're crying.
That's why they cry. All right, Mr. Calle, then you're up next here. Let's go ahead and drop. I can hear Mr. Tasso here who wants to get involved in this right now. I know what Joe's got to. So, Mr. Calle, there you go. It's your chance to go ahead and drop the dime here, my friend. What's on your mind?
I'm here with you and with Peter and with Joe, and I'm so thankful for you all for the work that you do, and in particular, I think to say this publicly in front of Peter. Peter has been there for me since I was a kid from Venezuela with, learned English in America. And he's been there and allowed me to be part of the American family, of the musical family. And he's been a teacher, a mentor, a friend, a colleague, a hero, a father figure. And when you have people like that in your life, that's why I think my attitude is that I don't want to lose anybody. Because the good that is in people and the good that I have experienced in my life here in America is something that I can never forget, I can never repay. And so Peter is one of the greatest musicians on the planet, and he's also one of the greatest leaders of people that I've ever seen. And Eddie, you've seen it with the band in Fort Lauderdale, you've seen it with Jaco Pastorius, you've seen it with everything. So for me, this is a chance to say thank you to Peter, who is somebody that I truly love and admire and respect. And I'm so thankful. And same goes for you and for Joe and the work that you do and the sports. But Peter is a special human being. And unfortunately, sometimes people like Peter don't get the credit they deserve. So I just want to say that publicly, because without Peter, there is no Ed Calle. So that's pretty simple.
Wow. Thank you.
I have never heard Peter Graves go speechless before.
Not much left to say there, buddy. Wow.
Well,
thank you.
I'm not even going to add any more. I could add a lot, but why? It was said so perfect. Mr. CASALE, all right, my friend, it is your time, because I know that Joe CASALE is one of those guys. I tell people all the time, he is the smartest man in the room. Don't go against him. He will win. So, Joey C., here you go, my friend. It's your chance to go ahead and knock the mic drop.
No, I think for me, it's amplification is the key word. I think we have to stop amplifying bad voices and really remember that there's more good people out there than bad, and that we have to stop drifting into areas to make ourselves feel better and get back to helping each other. I mean, when we started today, I started to talk about our sense of community, and what we're doing is we're losing our sense of community during the pandemic. And if we don't get it back, everything that we stand for is going to be gone. And nobody's going to care if you're Republican or Democrat, left or right. It's going to be gone. And when I hear people talk about, we're becoming a third world country, those are people who've never spent time in a third world country. We're not a third world country.
True.
We are a country that is divided on issues right now, but we can all agree that we don't want each other dying. And I think it's time now for us to put our big boy pants on, grow up a little bit, sacrifice for your neighbor next door. I mean, I'll give you an example. I mean, Ed, we talked earlier about all the nonsense I went through with the dog here and with the neighbors. Well, those neighbors have COVID now. So I've had more people come to me and say, well, there's karma. No, that's not karma. No, that's not good. I mean, here's the deal. You start rooting for people to be sick and fail, you failed. And we have to stop doing that. There are no trophies available if the people that you don't like end up dying of COVID. You're not going to get an award. Your business is not going to be better for it. I mean, we have to get back to a sense of community. I can dislike someone without wishing the worst possible thing on them. And we have to get back to that. And I honestly don't know how we do that, because social media algorithms are set up to create conflict. That's why things are not done. And that's why these algorithms are not sequential. So I don't know how we can do it. All we can do is look to ourselves. I mean, start with yourself and work outward. But we've got to do it, because we're losing here, and we're going to keep losing unless we start pulling on the same rope. And I keep saying, and I believe there are more good people out there than bad, and we're going to have to start amplifying those good voices, and really begin to tune out the bad.
I hope we can find them, though. I think that the good voices are so deeply buried anymore. I don't even know if we can hear them if they're screaming with a megaphone.
They're not on social media, I can tell you that.
We get every day.
Well, but see, Dr. Ed also pointed out, he said the two words, and you said them too, social media. I keep telling people every now and then, I said, look, why don't you, a friend of mine got on today and he talked about how he just came back from a suspension on Facebook. And he talked about what happened and how there was a woman saying that she wouldn't mind, she will not get her child vaccinated. It makes no difference, even if the child gets sick. And this guy's a father. And he got in there and he said, how dare you take that sort of tack towards children? Something should be done to you about the fact that you don't want to protect your child. Well, Facebook busted him for that. They gave him 30 days. And I came back, and I'm just paraphrasing a lot of it. I said, to me, the answer, though, is don't engage. When you see this claptrap idiocy and these knuckleheads out there, you want to go, it's like, you want to get right to it. And I said, stop, back up, walk away, because at least at the end of the day, we know who the idiots are. To me, it's more important to know who the drop heads are than anything else. And I'm just not going to get involved with them. Maybe that's the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, I had an idea for a bumper sticker years ago that would just say, assholes of the world unite. That way we know where you all are. I mean, it just, but the social media thing to me, and look, I mean, we talked about this the other day. I'm the guy with the Del Monte green bean can with a string. That's my idea of technology.
He was serious. He was going to come on the show with a green giant can. He really was. I had to talk him out of it.
But I mean, I only use Facebook, and I did that mostly because I could keep in touch with the guys I was in Vietnam with, the guys I met, like Ed and I met over in Europe or in Japan or whatever. And it's a great way to like keep up with people you don't see. But it's devolved into something that is just really hard to get my arms around. So I try and only do a couple of positive things and then get off, because it's just like Joe was talking about, that sense of community is not there. And he said, it's not designed. It's designed to fight exactly what he's saying. So, I don't have Twitter. I don't do any of that other stuff. And I don't miss it. I'll tell you right now, I don't miss it. And I find myself actually picking up the phone and actually dialing the numbers and speaking to people more now and getting away from the texting. I mean, because, it's so damn impersonal
Well, that's what it is. I caught a lot of heat from that from friends of mine who go, why don't you just text? I said, why don't you pick up the phone and call? Because if you've got the phone, here it is. If you got the phone in your hand, here's the texting that it takes. And not only that, but my goddamn thumb is too big. And I'm here and I'm trying to get the damn thing and I'm going back and I'm getting it wrong. And I'm going, okay, hey, hi, how are you? And they go, what'd you call me for? Why didn't you text me?
I'm a firm believer. I'm getting further and further away from the other stuff. You know,
I just can't. You know,
I'm still gonna bring that Del Monte can on one of these times. You know?
I know you are, and that's what. And I'm scared. I'm scared spitless that you're actually going to do that. All right, couple things we got to clean up here, and I promised that we were going to get to this, and I want to make sure we do, because the music side of things here is very big with all four of us here. Big. I mean, my Lady Shannon always, when we first met, she called me the music man. I have thousands of CDs. I won't get rid of them. I refuse to get rid of my CDs. I won't put them all up in the cloud, because the minute the cloud goes down, guess what? I can reach right over here and I got my CDs and I can play them. And I'm constantly finding new music again and going back to old music. I just recently downloaded the concert for Bangladesh, remembering what a great concert that was, the first great live concert. Ringo Starr has a 3 CD set with all his stuff and a lot of the people who've played with him over the years. I said, this is great stuff. But anyway, to the music of now, the New Orleans Jazz Fest, which is a yearly pilgrimage for Joe CASALE, and how so many people are no longer able to be there. Let's not even think about the music for a minute. Let's think about, courtesy of WWL in New Orleans, the people that rely on that show, the Jazz Fest, and so many other things for their livelihood.
Well,
the stage and booth decorations that help bring the fairgrounds to life during Jazz Fest every year will continue sitting inside Stronghold Studios for at least another 8 months.
We do a lot of music festivals, and one of our biggest clients is Jazz Fest.
The studio's owner, Coco Darrow, feels the economic hit from this year's Jazz Fest cancellation firsthand.
It means we are in danger of losing our business. It's just like every other small business that relies on music festivals and Mardi Gras.
With the numbers spiking, I'm not surprised, but it was like a punch in the gut.
Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser says every year Jazz Fest has an economic impact of more than $300 million.
That's a big blow to the economy.
It's equivalent to a Super Bowl every year.
Kelly Scholes helps promote tourism in the city with New Orleans and Company.
We've certainly missed out on that.
Many hotels in the city were already fully booked or approaching 100% capacity for both of those Jazz Fest weekends. Now they're getting those calls to cancel reservations.
We don't want to see any more cancellations, and there's a way to avoid it, and that is by getting more and more people that are vaccinated.
The New Orleans Marriott general manager believes rooms may still fill up, saying although we're disappointed about the cancellation of Jazz Fest, our optimism towards fall travel remains high as they're seeing an increase in leisure and business travel. And Nungesser is hopeful we'll see Jazz Fest return in 2022.
People getting vaccinated, people wearing their masks, keeping their distance. We've got to turn this around.
Until then,
both of these signs are for sale.
Businesses like Stronghold Studios will have to find more creative ways to survive. Erica Ferrando, Eyewitness News.
To the musicians in the crew right now, I mean, the lack of live music, we never realized the bonding part of our lives that it is until we had it taken away. And I'm wondering how you both feel that these festivals, these musicians who are out there every day who could barely make a living at the beginning, are going to be able to work their way back when we start to get back to normalcy, which can only happen, people, if you get vaccinated and stop spreading the disease. So, Dr. Ed, it's a tragic thing to see, but I wonder how much is actually going to come back. And I don't think anybody's doing it. I don't think one other thing I want to point out, as some people have said, well, the government is just putting these festivals out of business. No. The government's trying to save lives, you morons. I mean, can't you see that? It's unfortunate, but I think it has to be done.
Yeah, it's got nothing to do with that. There's no conspiracy there. There are plenty of other ones that we could have fun with, but that's not one. And I love conspiracy theories because I'm a big wrestling fan and I love UFOs and all that kind of stuff. But it's very sad what has happened. I feel like there are many musicians of my age and even a little younger who are not going to come back. They have found other ways to make a living, and it's not going to come back. They don't have enough time for that, and it's very sad. I hope that we're back by next year, but as Joe alluded, I really think that we are in uncharted territory where this is going to continue to spiral for a while. And so the only thing that we can do is to use alternative methods, which is to do the stuff streaming, to create those things. I know that we did the Latin Grammys this year. I got to perform there, and we were it looked like a hazmat center, but we were able to put on a show, and it was a very, very good show. Doing it with extreme caution. Nobody got sick, and had to do it for television that way. And they did things from different places, broadcasting from Mexico and from Venezuela and from other places. We're going to have to use those tools for a while to keep the music alive and to keep the musicians alive and the people, as your broadcast showed. It isn't just the musicians, and that's where people really fail with the arts. They don't understand that the arts is one of the most important economic engines in America. That's where the coffee shops and the restaurants and the hotels and the service people and the valet and on, and the engineers and the electricians and the security, and it is like sports in that sense. And we cannot afford to lose that business and that impact. And it also bonds us for life. Those memories that we have, I'll never forget spending time in New Orleans with Peter. I don't remember much because I was fat, drunk, and stupid at the time.
Thank you, Bluto Blutarski. Very nice of you to admit that you're there.
Right.
Very nice.
But I'll let Peter address that.
Peter,
well, the Joe is very familiar with that. I went to the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage, I think 10 years in a row. We would go, and it's such a huge part. I mean, having recorded with Dr. John and with Alan Toussaint and some of those guys over the years, it's just this wonderful, wonderful festival. And it's a huge part of the New Orleans traditions and stuff. Joe had mentioned something about the earlier festival, the one that's more for the locals. And I know friends of mine like Luther Kent and Alan Robinson, who plays drums for him, and some of the local guys. This is a devastating blow for them. And what you just said, that they're going to get paid or something through there. I think that's a wonderful, wonderful gesture, and I applaud whoever is the mechanism behind it. But it is such a huge, huge festival, and we love that city. Obviously, the music roots there are so huge. We would go with a gang. Rod Klobman, Ed News from the Pace concerts, and Will Lee from the Letterman show, and we would get a gang of people and go down each year. So it's just heartbreaking to see that thing have to pull the plug.
Joe, what were you saying earlier about they're going to do something for the local musicians?
Well, for
Joe,
the French Quarter Festival, they're going to pay the vendors and musicians through relief funds and through the sponsors that are there. I haven't heard anything about Jazz Fest. I think with Jazz Fest, because there's more national artists, I think what happened there is they were getting close to that period of time where they're going to have to issue their guarantees, and they just couldn't guarantee the event was going to take place. And it's devastating. It's devastating to people who've had they've had a vending tent there for 20 years. That's their source of income. There is no replacement. And you don't, and it is, we are at a point in this country where we're just extinguishing.
I think Joe probably froze there. He'll come back in a couple of minutes here. But one thing I did want to get to with you, Peter, is with regard to the fact that we haven't seen a lot of live performances. We don't see much in the last 20 months or so. Are we looking at one day we're going to look back and see this hole in our musical heritage in America, where there's not going to be a lot of original music. There's not going to be a lot of stuff that one day will become standards, which is the thing. And I see us one day suffering from this, to where it's going to be like a black hole in our musical lives, and it'll never be repaired.
I don't know, and I think Dr. Ed can probably answer that more, because he deals with the creators that are coming up, but this is obviously a black hole right here. I mean, we did. I think the last thing we did was the Chris Everett thing I do every year up at the Boca Raton, and we had Barry Gibb this past year because it was the 25th year, and that was in November of 2019. And then, right behind that, we hit this black hole, and talking to friends all over the world. I mean, it's empty. I did my very first performance just last month in Asheville since November of 2019.
Wow.
And it was with a limited in-house. We streamed it, but we did it with a limited house with open air. It was an inside, but the doors open, and that sort of thing. But I mean, you feed off of that live audience. So I mean, we were fortunate enough to have like a couple hundred people, not a huge crowd, but enough where you're feeding off of that energy. I understand the streaming thing and everything else, but I just don't know that we'll, without a real audience. I mean, it's just, until we get back to that, to me, I think the music business will suffer.
What do you think, Dr. Ed? I mean, are we looking at a point where, and you work with the young musicians every single day, you talk with them, and as part of your education process at Miami-Dade College, I know that they all want to get out and they all want to perform, and they're all still there and nobody's giving up. But are we looking at what will be a cavern, if you will, of real creativity and music one day, where we're going to look back and say those 2 years wasn't a whole hell of a lot that came out of those 2 years, and you can tell that it was something more than just the music?
Well, right now, I've been recording so much here at the studio at home. As I don't know if I'll show you. Like I'm all set up. I don't know if you can see, but there's microphones everywhere and instruments everywhere. I don't stop recording. People are just they're making more music now than I think they've ever made, because there's so much downtime. So the music isn't going anywhere. But and creativity will never get stifled. People will always make music. People will always play sports. But certainly, what Peter said, we're losing an enormous part of our society, of our community sense, where we can't go and share this energy that goes back and forth between the musicians and the music. And specifically in jazz, I think about how important it is to perform live, because that is, like you were saying before with medicine, the practice. When you go hear a jazz concert, you're not hearing a performance. What you really are hearing are people learning as they're sharing their ideas with you, and they're reacting to what's going on with the audience. And that we're missing that, and the young people are missing that, and they're upset about it. But it will come back. I have no fear about that. One thing that will help a lot is to develop the sense of local music once again. That's something that's been going on for a long time here in the U.S., but we lost, for example, the Muscle Shoals sound and the L.A. sound and the New York sound and the Miami sound. There are pockets of great music all over the country, and unfortunately, the way that radio and mass media works is that it pushes a one sound approach. And so people like Peter and other people, and what they do in the Jazz Fest in New Orleans, those are so important to develop those local artists, the local voices, those kind of, it's almost like cooking, where you have the kitchen from different places. So if we can bolster that, I think we're going to have more music than ever before, and maybe better music than ever before, or at least more great music.
I'll drop this in here to everybody. Support your local musicians. Go to the local outlets. Pay attention to them. Go see the freebies. Go see the $5 concerts. Go to the places. I mean, hell, I can still remember walking into Tobacco Road in Miami, and just walking in there at 2 o'clock in the morning, and somebody was up on the. Who is that? I have no idea, man. Jesus, that's good. You know, and it's,
Yeah.
I mean, the first time I
Absolutely.
ever heard I heard Mitch Woods play at a bar in South Dade. And I went out, I walked in and I said, God, can I please have more? How many CDs do you have? And just because you found that. So please, people, as you're going out there, support the local musicians. They need it. They'll love you for it is what we need. One last thing I want to get to here to promote everybody, because we are doing the show on Friday the 13th, which I didn't really even think of until all of a sudden I looked at the calendar. I said, holy crap, it's Friday the 13th. And what many people do is, of course, they think about Friday the 13th without really ever knowing what it's all about. Well, thanks to the people, and again, that's why we do the show, to the people at KHOU-TV in Houston, Texas, we can at least get a good starter.
Friday the 13th, it's estimated that about 20 million Americans might reschedule a doctor's appointment, refuse to fly, or cancel an event if it falls on this fateful day. It's at the top of the list that includes black cats, broken mirrors, stepping on cracks, and yes, walking under a ladder. There is even a name for the fear of Friday the 13th, paracavidecatriophobia. The history of this infamous day goes back a bit further than that guy in a goalie mask. Some historians trace it to the Last Supper, where the 13th guest may have been the apostle who betrayed Jesus. For us, our brains like to make causal connections. So if something bad happened to you on this date, the link will be forever associated in your mind, and you may need something to blame. We call on ways to control uncertainty by following rituals or carrying a lucky charm like a rabbit's foot, which probably wasn't that lucky for the one-legged limping rabbit. There is no evidence that this day is any different from any other day. You'll be fine. Knock on wood.
Don't you dare ever touch a rabbit. I mean, I'll be all over your ass. Don't you dare touch that funny rabbit, man. I'll be you'll have me to pay for it. Okay, so then, Mr. CASALE, is there anything about Friday? Well, instead of just Friday the 13th, everybody's got superstitions. I mean, whether they're just ridiculous or not, you must have a couple.
Let me see.
Is there anything that you get stuck on?
During hockey season, if the Rangers win a game, I don't change that shirt until they lose the game. So, we'll stay, certain shirts stays on until they lose. Then I have to switch. And never wear the 1994 hat or T-shirt that I still have from the Stanley Cup champions. Wow. I still have it, never worn it.
And that's close to me, because when it's hockey season, I have my Zdeno Chara jersey, which I only wear during the playoffs. I'll wear it opening day and then the playoffs. But I've got like 12 different Bruins T-shirts, and they're all from different times, and I'll wear one. They win, okay, comes on the next day. Okay, what they won? Is that okay?
Can't mess with the streak.
They lost, laundry. It goes in the laundry. That's it. And you keep rotating till the next one. So I think a lot of it is sports. Dr. Ed, anything from you?
No, 13. My favorite ball player is Dan Marino, and he's a good friend of Peter's, and he's one of my heroes. So I don't have any things, but I do have one. When I play the saxophone. This is funny.
Ladies and gentlemen, by the way, here's a quick note to the people at ASCAP BMI. Please, for God's sake, don't throw any kind of fine at me. He's doing it. It's his decision, not mine.
That's right.
Send the bill to Lamont.
This is called a mouthpiece cap, right? And it protects your reed. Now, I've never had a reed split on the stage, but when I go to play, I have to have this on the reed, and I have to take it off and put it in my back pocket. If for some reason it's not there, I cannot play. And Peter has been a witness to this on the bandstand, where he sees me running around or looking around like I dropped $1 million bill. He's like, what the hell is going on with Kaye? And where is his mouthpiece cap? So that's my only real thing. And there's one other one. If you have time, this is a funny one. This is true.
Oh, brother, we got all the time in the world. This is OTT television, man. We're not knocked by commercial and break times here.
This is a true story, and this could only happen to me. So you see how I have a lavalier right here on my lapel, right? Well, when I was touring with Julio Iglesias for many years, and we were playing at the Sunrise Musical Theater, And Julio puts on this incredibly long show, and I had to urinate. I had to pee. And so I said to my friend, the drummer, I said, David, what do I do? He said, just go, man, just go. So I took my wireless microphone off the bell of the saxophone, which was here, and I put it on my shirt. And I went to urinate, and as Peter will tell you, the bathrooms are right behind the stage. Well, unfortunately, I didn't turn off the mic. So now Julio's out there. It's a full house. I come back out, and the people start applauding and laughing because they heard the psst and the toilet flush. So now, ever since that happened, I have to go pee right before I play, even if I had just gone 3 minutes before. So you talk about like psychosis. That's psychosis.
You do know that's a bit from The Naked Gun, don't you?
But that really did happen to me. It's unbelievable. That could only happen to me. It just, and Julio just looked at me. He's singing, you know, all that romantic, and he looks over and goes, "Why are they clapping?" And then he laughed because he realized what had just happened.
Well, at least you didn't do like Leslie Nielsen did in The Naked Gun. Oh God, I would have loved that. Somebody's got to have a recording of that somewhere.
I don't know if Chris Carlton has it, but he was the engineer at the time, and they never let me live it down.
Mr. Graves, can you top that one?
Well, I don't have a lot of superstitions, but he talking about Sunrise Musical Theater, and one of the most superstitious people we ever worked with was we did 13 weeks with Yul Brynner on King and I there at Sunrise. And as you know, the Sunrise Musical Theater didn't have a real pit. So they would take out the first couple of rows and we would sit where the pit would normally be, but we were from the shoulders up, you visible to the artists, you know, it wasn't a true pit. So like most 13-week shows, by the second week, everybody in the band knows their parts. They got it memorized. They're not looking at the music anymore. They're barely looking at the conductor ever. They got books out, you know, blah, blah, blah. So during this 13 weeks, and Brenner was notorious for not particularly liking the musicians, but he loved us. We got along great with him, thank God. And he invited us to a couple of backstage parties, blah, blah, blah. So we're getting towards the end of the 13-week run, and it's Super Bowl Sunday. Needless to say, we're not watching the music at all. Now, you know, it's about a 25-piece orchestra down there in the pit. So we've got all the little TVs. We've got the earpieces going. We're watching the game. What we forget about is that towards the end of the King and I, there's a death scene. And there's a blackout. And the electrics go to total blackout when the king dies up there. Well, the problem is the pit, it's not on the same electrics. So he's dying, and there's this glow of television screens coming out of the pit. And Brenner opens up one eye, and he looks to us, and he says, "What's the score?" Oh, talk about seeing your whole career flash in front of your eyes. You know.
That's funny.
So you now have an aversion to places without musical pits, and playing on a Super Bowl Sunday. Oh my God!
Oh God!
Why don't you write a book, man?
Oh,
I'm serious.
I've been asked that a number of times. You know,
yes.
Yeah, probably because I can't remember shit. You know.
Well, you remember enough. I mean, look, all you have to do is remember just enough. I'll write the book. Come on. I'll write the book. Let's write a book about this show. Christ, that'd get us all started here. We'd have all kinds of stories here.
But the other New Orleans one, we went up there with Paul Anka years ago. We flew up to do a show for NBC, and we're in one of those big ballrooms in the Superdome. There's these huge rooms up in the ring. Anybody's been up there, you know, it's like an amazing building. So we do the show, but he won't pay for us to stay Super Bowl. So we're on a plane flying back to Miami while the game is going on. And we have a pilot who's a real comedian. So he says, "We know a bunch of you were just playing with Paul Anka at the Super Bowl. We want to keep you updated on the score." He says, "I got a partial score for you, 14. And that was it.
I'm never going to listen to Paul Anka again, that cheap son of a bitch. Come on, pay the guys for super. And again, that's another car limit. And here's a partial score: Pittsburgh 45.
That's it.
Whole thing, that's perfect. Oh my God. Gentlemen, I cannot tell you how much fun this has been, because you three are three of my favorite people, three of my greatest friends. And I was just determined that we were going to get together, and I knew that music was going to come into this. And one of these days I'll be able to have enough money where I can pay ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, and I could have Mr. Kaye just go ahead and play. You realize that if he hits 3 lousy notes and I got ASCAP on my ass, I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
I lose my house.
No, that's what I said. Just send Lamont the bill.
Well,
yeah, there you go.
It's a multimillionaire. He can handle it without a problem. That's all. See, and Dr. Ed's nodding his head. He goes, "Oh yeah, man. I've seen those guys come after people before. We had that.
Yeah.
We've had that old thing where people go, whatever happened to needle drop?" I said, there is no such thing. For anybody who doesn't know, there was always this thinking process in radio, and it started where if you took the needle of the microphone or the phonograph, and if you dropped it on the record, and you played 5 seconds. Or if you just put it at the beginning and played 5 seconds. Needle drop. You can get away with that. Bullshit! I had a radio station in Sanford, Florida, a million years ago that tried that. They got hit with a bill, and this is a long time ago. They got hit with a bill for $6,000 for 9 seconds of music they weren't allowed to play, and they didn't have a license for it. So never again. Don't hit me, please. I don't ever want to do that.
In the Donald Passman book, which is one of the music business books, he talks about the Minneapolis area, and what the radio stations had to pay for airplay was $2 million for the year, just in the area of Minneapolis. So you can imagine big markets like New York, Miami, what it's like. So we definitely don't want to send that bill to Lamont.
No, well, oh, you kidding? He'll go, first thing, Jen.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, Jen, here's your happy birthday present.
We love you, Dave.
Oddly enough, it's her birthday today too. So
yeah, I know it is.
Birthday, Jen.
Happy birthday, Jen. Here's the bill. We can tell those jokes because we're friends. Let's remind everybody of everybody here, so you can get a hold of everyone. Joe CASALE, my partner, my muse, my friend for so many years. You can check him out on Facebook and Instagram at Chef CASALE, Twitter at SportsJC16. And the thing to do is you have to make sure to ask about Tasso, who is the extraordinary doxy, who is, I don't care what anybody says, this dog is the coolest thing I've ever, well, next to my dogs. You know, you got to kind of put Magnus and Bailey in there. Cool little dog. I understand he got a little ill here during the show earlier. Is he okay? Is everybody okay?
Yeah, we'll have to see.
Okay, no, he's fine, man. He's getting out. He's got Dr. Joe there. Everything's going to be fine. So follow the adventures of Tasso and Joe on Facebook and on Instagram. Mr. Graves, as he has pointed out so beautifully, hates social media. God love him. I love the fact that he doesn't have to live with it, but you can get a hold of him at Facebook at Peter Graves 169. Do you have anything in the pipeline coming up anytime soon?
Geez, I didn't even know I had that. I was going to say, if you need to get in touch with me, call Dr. Ed, and he'll call me on my Del Monte green bean can. You know.
Damn Del Monte can. That's okay. But I'm just making sure.
But no, the only thing we're looking at right now is December 1st. We haven't finalized any details yet, but we're just starting in on it. Would have been Jaco Pastorius' 70th birthday. So we're going to try and pull off a fairly large celebration concert, assuming everything, is a little bit better at that point. We'd hate to have to do it strictly by streaming, but stay tuned to Ed Kaye's station.
Hopefully South Florida.
Oh, absolutely. We're aiming probably for Pompano or someplace in that area.
Good.
Yeah.
I just want to be sure because I'm cheap. I don't want to travel.
Oh, absolutely.
And we'll
we know that.
Well, come on. As a member of the media, that's why you always say passes. Anybody got passes?
Yeah, I've seen your act before.
My act is no worse than anybody else in this business who wants the free food at halftime at the football games. All right, which used to be free, but now you got to pay for them. They're at least $5 a pop. Mr. Kaye, I know that you have got a new album coming out. Tell us about it.
Yeah, Soulful Nights. My good friend Mike Lewis was one of the legendary arrangers. He did all the stuff for KC and Peter knows him well. He's just an incredible person. He wrote all this music for me, and he and Hal Back came to me and said, hey, we'd like to produce a solo album for you. And we did, and we invited John Cicada and KC. They sang on it. KC sounds fantastic. Cicada is off the charts as usual. So that's going to come out soon. And then I'm at the Arts Garage up in Delray on September 18th, God willing, if we're not shut down again. And September 19th at the Black Box with Charles Calello, one of the greatest arrangers, arrangers on the planet. This man holds the record for the most top, is it 100 or top 10 hits in history? I mean, Native New Yorker, Sinatra, Streisand, you name it, he's done it. The guy's a genius, and I
worked with him with Frankie Valli. He came into Bachelor's 3 back in the early 70s, I think it was, and he brought in Swearing to God, and some of the. I mean, I've known Charlie that long. Yeah, great
all
talent.
Those arrangements, Charlie. You can't turn on the radio without listening to his arrangements, and if you get a chance to go see it, he is really a living legend and one of the nicest people. You got to get him on the show because his stories are unbelievable. So we'll see you there, and I'll be floating around the campus or the internet.
Floating around the internet campus. And a reminder then for Dr. Kaye, Facebook is at Ed Kaye Official. He's official.
Right.
Twitter is at Ed Kaye. Instagram is at Dr. Ed Kaye. And website is go to edkaye.com, where you can find out all about what he's doing when the albums are coming out and find out when the dates are. I am going to be there. I will be there for Mr. Graves. I'll be there for the Jocko Show. Dr. Kaye, I will be there for your show, and I'm bringing Joe Casale and Lady Shannon and everybody with us because if it's music,
there you go.
If it's music, we're there.
Give her love to Lady Shannon.
Free passes?
No, just I'll get you some passes. Yeah, I'll get you.
Passes. Oh, okay. Hey, we're all set to go. There you go.
And by the way, that with both at the Arts Garage and with Charles, Tommy Sellers, who is one of my favorite singers on the planet. This woman is just an incredible singer. She'll be there, and Charles has two incredible singers, Tommy and a gentleman. When you go to that show, you'll know every song. They're all hits, and he wrote all.
Tommy is excellent.
Let's put everybody in the show. I'm gonna be in touch with you.
Yeah.
Let's get him here. Let's get him on the show. Let's talk music and stories one day and tell them they can't.
That'll be awesome.
It'd be perfect.
That'll be awesome.
Gentlemen, it is a pleasure. Thank you so much. Look, I wish you all health. Please stay healthy. Please stay with us because I wanna hear music from you guys for a very, 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 very long time. And Mr. Casale, I want us to continue our conversations for a long time. And we're still going to get Tasso and Magnus and Bailey together in a play date. It's going to happen one time. And when that happens,
Pleasure meeting you, Joe.
I'm bringing cocktails.
Pleasure meeting you guys. This was fun. Thank you.
Guys,
Joe.
Thanks so much. Everybody hang tight for just a minute. I want to say goodbye to I'm going to say goodbye to the audience here, and then I'll come back to you. Hey, thanks once again. I thank Dr. Ed Kaye. I thank Peter Graves. I thank Joe Casale. And I thank you as well. Thank you so much for being here. Don't forget, go to welcometothearena.com on YouTube. You can subscribe and see all the shows there. Go to any of the podcast platforms you go to and just search out my name, search out Ed Berliner, and you will find all the shows there in audio podcast as well. And you can watch us live across social media. Thanks so much, everybody. Good Friday the 13th. Put on those damn Hawaiian shirts. It's time for a cocktail. For everybody, I'm Ed Berliner. Rock on, true believers. See ya.
You're still here?
Are you not entertained?
It's over.
All right, hey. All right, good job, guys. Let's just not come in tomorrow. Let's just take a day.
Go home.
I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Go.
That's all, folks.